Have you ever lost your peace just because someone didn't text back? Have you ever stayed up all night replaying what someone said about you? And deep down, you knew it shouldn't matter that much, but it did. My friends, most of us don't suffer because of what people do to us. We suffer because of how much we care about what they think of us. We bend, we break, we lose ourselves trying to please everyone. And in that process, we forget the one person who truly deserves our care, ourselves. Today, let's talk about something powerful. You care too much, stop it. Because sometimes caring less doesn't make you heartless, it makes you free. There are people in your life who make you feel alive, inspired, understood. They bring light to your days. But there are also people who slowly drain you, not because they are bad, but because your heart gives more than it receives. You see, caring is a beautiful quality until it becomes self-destruction in disguise. Sometimes we hold on to relationships, friendships, and connections long after they've stopped nourishing us, only because we don't want to appear selfish, cold, or unkind. But my friends, being kind to others while being cruel to yourself is not kindness, it's confusion. You can love someone and still walk away. You can wish them well and still create distance. You can forgive them completely and still choose not to let them have access to your peace. It's not that you stopped caring, it's that you started caring for yourself too. The truth is, not everyone who enters your life is meant to stay forever. Some come to teach you patience, some to teach you boundaries, and some to teach you how to value your energy. The problem is, we confuse temporary lessons for lifelong commitments. We must learn to protect our emotional space like we protect our homes. You wouldn't let anyone walk into your house and rearrange your furniture, right? So why do we allow people to walk into our minds and rearrange our peace? Protect your peace, not by building walls, but by building wisdom. Recognize who deserves your time and who drains your strength. The ones who truly care about you will never demand your constant availability. They will respect your silence. They will value your boundaries. They will love you even when you say no. But those who only take from you, they'll call you selfish the moment you stop giving. And that's when you must remember peace is not found in pleasing others, it's found in choosing yourself. So love deeply, yes, be kind always. But never let your compassion become the reason you collapse. You can care without carrying. You can love without losing yourself. Because your energy, your peace, your joy, they are sacred. And the moment you start protecting them, your life begins to change. We often think caring too much means we're being loving, that we're good, hearted, kind, and emotionally generous. But sometimes, caring too much doesn't come from love. It comes from fear. Fear of being left out. Fear of being unloved. Fear of being forgotten. So we overextend ourselves. We text first. We say yes when our heart says no. We tolerate behavior that breaks our spirit, not because we're weak, but because we're terrified that if we stop caring, we'll lose people. But here's the truth, love and fear cannot exist in the same heart. When love is real, it's peaceful, it's patient, it doesn't demand your exhaustion. Fear, on the other hand, disguises itself as care. It whispers, if you stop trying, they'll stop loving you. It tells you that your worth depends on how much you do for others. It convinces you that being available all the time will make you valuable. But what it really does is make you invisible. When your care is born out of fear, you start overgiving, overthinking, over-apologizing. You start taking responsibility for other people's moods. You start believing that if someone is unhappy, somehow it's your fault. That's not love, that's emotional slavery. Love is free, fear is conditional. Love says, I care about you. Fear says, I need you to like me. And the difference between the two is what decides your peace. Many of us grew up believing that caring more means loving more. We were taught to please, to adjust, to bend, to make everyone else comfortable, even if it hurts us. But the deepest truth is this: when you love from fear, you attract people who feed on that fear. You attract situations that test your self-worth. You start giving to prove your value rather than giving from fullness. Let me ask you something. How many times have you tried to make everyone happy, only to end up feeling empty yourself? How many times have you said, I'm fine, when you were breaking inside just to avoid disappointing someone? That's what fear does. It silences your needs and amplifies your guilt. Real love doesn't ask you to shrink so someone else can shine. It doesn't demand your constant attention to prove your loyalty. Real love allows space, it breathes. It gives you freedom to rest without feeling guilty. It honors your boundaries because it understands that peace is sacred. So, stop mistaking fear for love. You don't have to care so much that you lose sleep, lose self-respect, or lose your center. The people who are meant for you will not leave because you stopped over-caring. They'll stay because they value the calm, grounded version of you, not the anxious, overthinking version trying to earn love. When you care too much from fear, you chase love. When you care just enough from peace, you attract it. So learn to care less from fear and more from freedom. Because the moment you do, you'll realize that love isn't something you have to earn. It's something you naturally deserve. You can't control others' opinions. You simply can't. And the sooner you accept that truth, the lighter your heart becomes. Because no matter how kind you are, no matter how pure your intentions are, people will always see you through the filter of their own perception. Some will see your silence as strength, others as arrogance. Some will call your confidence go, while others will admire your courage. What they say about you reveals who they are, not who you are. We spend so much of our lives trying to correct the way people see us. We defend, we explain, we justify. But here is the truth. The world doesn't see you as you are. It sees you as it is. Everyone looks through their own lens, shaped by their past, their pain, their fears, and their insecurities. You can't change that lens, but you can choose not to be affected by it. Think about it. When someone calls you selfish for finally setting boundaries, are you really selfish, or are they just uncomfortable because you stopped serving their comfort? When someone calls you changed, is it because you actually changed, or because you stopped tolerating what you used to? Every opinion, every judgment, every label someone throws at you says more about their mindset than your reality. And yet, we waste so much emotional energy trying to explain ourselves to people who've already made up their minds. We replay conversations, we craft the perfect reply. We want them to understand our heart. But my friends, some people are not meant to understand you. Some are meant to misunderstand you, because that misunderstanding is what pushes you toward authenticity. You see, when you stop trying to manage others' opinions, you finally start managing your peace. You stop performing. You stop pleasing. You stop bending yourself into shapes that don't fit your soul. You realize you are not here to be liked by everyone. You're here to be real. The truth is, people will project their own wounds onto you. Someone who's been betrayed will see betrayal even in loyalty. Someone who's been abandoned will doubt even the purest care. You cannot fight their perception, but you can choose not to live under its shadow. When you let go of the need to be seen a certain way, you start shining in your natural way. The greatest freedom comes when you stop defending who you are and start being who you are. Because the ones who matter, they see you, they feel your sincerity, they recognize your intent even when your words stumble. And those who don't, no amount of explanation will change their perception. So stop trying to control the uncontrollable. Don't let someone's limited view of you limit your life. Let people think what they want to think, because they will anyway. Instead, focus on living in alignment with your values, your truth, your purpose. Remember, even the sun is criticized for being too hot, and the moon is judged for not shining enough. So if the universe itself can't please everyone, why should you? Be kind but firm. Be humble but unapologetic. Live your truth quietly and let time speak louder than words. Because one day, those who misunderstood you will realize the depth of your heart, but by then, you'll be too at peace to even need their approval. This is one of the most misunderstood truths of life. People often think that detachment means you stop caring, that you become cold, distant, or emotionless. But that's not detachment. That's indifference. Detachment is something far deeper, far nobler, far more peaceful. It doesn't mean you feel less. It means you stop suffering from what you feel. When you are attached, your peace depends on outcomes, on how people behave, on what happens tomorrow, on how much others appreciate you. You smile when they approve, and you break when they don't. You rise when things go right, and you collapse when they don't. That's attachment. The invisible string that ties your happiness to things you can't control. And every time life shakes that string, your emotions swing with it. Detachment, however, is strength. It's the art of staying centered no matter what happens around you. It's loving fully but knowing that you cannot possess. It's giving deeply but without the expectation of return. It's showing up with kindness but also being okay if that kindness isn't recognized. Detachment is the spiritual maturity to say, I will do my best and I will let life do the rest. Let's be clear, detachment doesn't make you heartless. It makes you whole. When you are detached, you still love, but your love doesn't bind, it liberates. You still care, but your care doesn't consume, it balances. You still engage with life, but you don't become a prisoner to its ups and downs. You act, you give, you feel, but you don't cling. Imagine holding a handful of sand. If you clutch it tightly, it slips away, but if you hold it gently, it stays. That's what detachment feels like. A gentle hold on life, people, and emotions. You don't squeeze them out of fear. You simply let them be, trusting that what's meant for you will stay, and what's not meant will leave. When we are attached, our mind becomes restless. We constantly think, what if they leave me? What if I fail? What if they don't like me anymore? These thoughts become chains that keep us trapped in anxiety. But when we practice detachment, those chains break. You begin to live with trust. Trust in yourself, in timing, in the divine plan. You understand that peace is not the absence of emotion, but the mastery of it. So many of us confuse letting go with giving up. But letting go is not giving up. It's growing up. It's realizing that you don't need to chase what's already running away. It's understanding that you can care about people deeply and still not allow their behavior to control your happiness. It's knowing that you can wish the best for someone, even if your paths no longer align. Think about this. The tree doesn't cling to every leaf that falls. It lets them go, knowing that letting go makes space for new life to bloom. Similarly, when we let go of emotional attachments that hurt us, we make space for peace, clarity, and new beginnings. The beauty of detachment is that it brings freedom without taking away compassion. It teaches you how to love without losing yourself. It allows you to stay calm in chaos, patient in pain, and grateful in uncertainty. You stop fighting life and start flowing with it. So don't be afraid to detach. Detach not because you don't care, but because you finally understand that your peace is priceless. You can still love them, but you don't have to suffer for them. You can still dream, but you don't have to be destroyed if things don't go your way. You can still give your best, but you don't have to tie your worth to the results. True peace begins when you stop clinging and start trusting. When you stop controlling and start surrendering. When you stop fearing loss and start embracing flow. Because when your happiness no longer depends on external circumstances, when it springs from within, that's when you've mastered detachment. And that's when life stops being a storm that tosses you around and becomes a river that carries you gently home. It's what happens when your mind and your heart are both working overtime. When you care so deeply about something or someone that your thoughts refuse to rest. You replay conversations, you analyze every word, every silence, every gesture, searching for meaning, clarity, reassurance. You're not doing it because you're weak, you're doing it because you feel too much. Because your emotions run deep and your care has no boundaries. But here's the truth. Overthinking is not a sign of intelligence or love. It's a sign of emotional exhaustion. It's what happens when your heart carries the burden of things it cannot control. You lie awake at night thinking, did I say something wrong? Do they still care? What if I lose them? What if I fail? These questions circle around your mind like restless birds that never find a place to land. The reason overthinking hurts so much is because it's not just mental, it's emotional. It's the fear of loss, the fear of being misunderstood, the fear of being not enough. You care so much that you start trying to control outcomes with thoughts. You think if you analyze enough, you can prevent pain. But instead, you end up reliving it before it even happens. Overthinking is what happens when caring turns into worrying. It's when empathy becomes anxiety. It's when your heart is so full that it spills over into endless what ifs. You imagine scenarios, you create explanations, you write stories in your head that may never come true, but they feel real because your emotions make them vivid. But you see, the problem isn't that you care. The problem is that you don't know where to stop. Caring is beautiful when it leads to action, but it becomes harmful when it traps you in rumination. You can't heal by rethinking the same pain 1,000 times. You can't find peace by constantly revisiting the wounds that made you lose it. There comes a point where you must remind yourself, I don't need to figure it all out right now. Because most of what we overthink never even happens. The people we worry about find their own way. The situations we fear often dissolve with time. Life has a rhythm, but we miss it when we try to predict every beat. You must understand, overthinking is an emotional reaction to uncertainty. Your mind is trying to protect you from possible pain by preparing for it. But in doing so, it keeps you in a constant state of emotional alertness. You're always waiting for something to go wrong. You're always trying to read between lines that don't even exist. The key is not to stop caring, but to care differently. Instead of caring by overthinking, care by trusting. Trust that what's meant for you won't need chasing. Trust that people who truly value you won't make you question your worth. Trust that life, even when uncertain, has a way of working things out for your growth. Try this the next time your mind begins to spiral. Pause. Breathe. Place your hand on your heart and whisper to yourself, it's okay not to know. Because it really is. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need peace in the middle of uncertainty. Learn to differentiate between thinking and dwelling. Thinking is active, it leads to clarity. Dwelling is repetitive, it leads to exhaustion. Thinking solves, overthinking suffocates. And the difference lies in your ability to let go once you've done your part. When you stop overcaring, you don't stop loving. You start loving peacefully. You stop needing to control every detail and start learning how to flow. You start giving space to yourself, to others, and to life. You start trusting that everything doesn't need your constant supervision to turn out okay. Remember, your mind can't rest when your heart is afraid. So instead of trying to calm your thoughts, calm your fears. Instead of asking, what if it goes wrong? Ask, what if it turns out better than I expected? Shift your focus from fear to faith, because the truth is, you'll never think your way into peace. You'll only feel your way into it. And that happens when you allow things to be, when you let life breathe without your constant interference. So yes, overthinking is emotional overcaring. But when you start to care with trust, with surrender, with acceptance, the noise begins to fade, the storms in your head begin to quiet, and in that silence, you'll find something priceless, peace that doesn't depend on answers. Most of us don't even realize how much of our life is quietly controlled by this one invisible addiction. The need to be liked, accepted, and approved by others. It starts early. As children, we learned that when we behaved a certain way, people smiled. When we spoke softly, agreed quickly, or acted politely, we were praised. But when we expressed anger, disagreed, or showed sadness, we were told to be good. So slowly, without noticing, we began to edit ourselves. We learned to hide certain emotions, to wear certain masks, to say what others wanted to hear. Not because we wanted to deceive, but because we wanted to belong. And that's how approval addiction begins, not in manipulation, but in fear. The fear of rejection, the fear of not being enough, the fear of standing alone. So we adapt, we please, we perform, we shape, shift into versions of ourselves that fit other people's expectations, bosses, parents, friends, society. But with every layer of pretending, we lose a layer of truth. The irony is that the more we try to be liked, the less we are truly known. People start loving the version of us that we created for them, not the real us. And deep down, that creates a silent pain. If they really knew who I am, would they still accept me? That's the curse of approval addiction. Even when people love you, you can't feel it fully, because part of you knows they're loving your performance, not your presence. We become addicted to praise like it's oxygen. A compliment gives us a high, criticism feels like suffocation. We scroll through messages and likes, searching for tiny signs that we matter. But here's the painful truth. When your happiness depends on being approved, you'll always be emotionally hungry. Because no amount of approval can fill the emptiness of self-rejection. You start saying yes when you mean no. You agree when you disagree. You stay silent when your soul screams to speak. You become everyone's good person, but your heart feels exhausted. Because pretending to be what others want you to be is the most draining form of emotional labor. It takes energy to constantly manage perceptions, to monitor every word, every reaction, every impression. The saddest part is approval addiction kills authenticity slowly. You stop being yourself even when you're alone. You start thinking like someone's watching, even when no one is. You start questioning your worth based on someone's reaction. You lose the freedom to be imperfect, to fail, to be human. But the truth is, no one ever gained true respect by constantly seeking approval. The most respected people are often the most misunderstood at first, because authenticity threatens conformity. When you stop trying to please everyone, you'll trigger some, you'll confuse others, you might even lose a few people. But what you'll gain in return is yourself. Authenticity is not rebellion, it's alignment. It's living in harmony with your own values, not someone else's validation. It's being okay with not being liked by everyone, because you finally like yourself. It's walking into a room and not needing to perform because you're comfortable being real. You see, the moment you stop chasing approval, something magical happens. People start feeling your truth. And truth, unlike performance, doesn't fade. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't demand recognition. It just is. So how do you heal from approval addiction? You start by disappointing people gently, but intentionally. You say no when it feels wrong. You express opinions even when they're unpopular. You choose silence over forced smiles. You give yourself permission to not explain your every decision. And at first, it feels uncomfortable. You'll feel guilt. You'll fear judgment. But slowly, you'll notice something. The world doesn't end when you stop pleasing everyone. In fact, it becomes lighter. Real people begin to appear. People who love you for your realness, not your performance. There's an incredible peace that comes with authenticity. You stop rehearsing your life and start living it.